Hello and welcome to the Climate Statutory Duty UK. This is the project dedicated to help the UK get to net zero quickly and using local authorities as the key agent for change and progress. Today we're hearing from a company that's using cutting-edge technology to create solutions to problems which were once insurmountable, whilst ensuring best practice, best solutions and saving you money. So let's talk to Richard Hallewell from CPRAS. Richard, welcome to the show. Welcome to this episode, I should say.
Thank you, Wisdom. Delighted to be here.
Excellent. So, Richard, what is CPRAS? Tell us more about CPRAS.
Okay. Well, CPRAS, we founded CPRAS back in 2008. That was myself and my father. The premise was that we wanted to help large organizations. Originally, it was private sector and public sector, but now we're very much focused on public sector and especially local government, but to help them with complex procurement projects. We that's about 17 years ago now. We're now a multi-award-winning company, and we're helping more than 20% of UK local councils, as well as some blue light organisations, emergency services, education sector, and even the health sector. And it's all focused about procuring things that are difficult to procure. We started out with a single procurement framework that we did for Shropshire Council. That was actually the first international finance procurement framework in Europe. We're now, I think the last time I checked, we were looking at about £3 billion of transactions flowing through the financial services frameworks. So yeah, it's quite extensive. That's kind of key experience in some way, because it's very complex often, but it's also an area that requires absolute trust. We're dealing with bank accounts and payment systems.
That's fantastic. As I was saying, that's very reassuring, and it should be reassuring to anybody who wants to talk to CPRAS that your industry, wherever the background that you've been filtered through, it has been the fintech, and the levels of standards there are incredibly high, if not that's second to none. So tell me more about yourself, Richard.
Well, I've spent the last 20 years or so in public procurement and, as we said, fintech sectors. I've always been interested in how technology can solve problems in a way, not just improving them kind of step by step, but how some technology can come along and completely revolutionise solutions to problems. So I've had leadership roles in a number of frontier technology groups like the Government Blockchain Association. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're a global that advise some of the most significant governments in the world about how blockchain can transform public services.
Okay. And what was your introduction to blockchain and perhaps even the universal pricing model?
Well, the universal pricing model was an innovation that I led, and that the introduction to that. And interestingly, we were approached by a major bank who were having real problems understanding their own cost base. So we developed what is now known as the universal pricing model, and that's actually the backbone that underpins the pricing of about 30% of all credit debit transactions that are transacted in the UK.
So you come from a background, if you like, from a city, from industry, where you've added a lot of value to organisations. And I understand that now you're looking to sort of refocus, shift that now into sort of more public services and really more humanitarian, to use for want of a better expression, more humanitarian style projects.
I think the best way to put that is that we've developed some technology that hopefully I'll get to tell you all about, but it's really quite groundbreaking stuff. But if we just use that ourselves, then yes, we'll carry on delivering, great benefits to all our clients, but that's incremental. That's incremental, and it's chipping away at what is actually too big a problem to be chipped away at. We need something much more comprehensive. So yeah, the transformation that we're engaged in now is turning what is our internal technology into a support platform that can be ultimately owned by the public sector. So the idea is that we're going to make this available free of charge as a support system that can drive incredible change and incredible benefits for public sector bodies to just use it themselves. What we need to do now is actually make a difference. Technology can absolutely transform things, and that's what we're looking at. That's the opportunity that we're looking at right now.
That's amazing. So you're using your corporate know-how to help improve or move the dial on climate change and environmental improvements. That's fantastic. Richard, let's change a little bit, change tack now. Let's talk about some of the problems that are being faced that you perhaps and CPRAS and the technology suites that you use have answers to. Tell me more about the different problems that local authorities and others face.
So everything we do, it's all about procurement, but procurement is about everything. So whatever project any council or health trust or whatever it may be has, they need procurement. Now, there's a fundamental issue with public procurement, and there's good reasons for it historically. But as things stand, it's creating an absolutely catastrophic problem. It boils down to this: that whenever any public body is procuring something, they essentially have two options. They can go through a whole complex tender process, which is time consuming, it's expensive, it comes with risks, or they can use what's known as a procurement framework, which is quick, cheap, it's risk-free, but it's a one-size-fits-all solution. So it's almost, one size fits all, fits nobody perfectly. What that means is that roughly 80% of the time when any public body is looking to procure something, they end up having to go down the long-winded, expensive, time-consuming, risky option of doing it themselves, because the one-size-fits-all doesn't quite fit them. So if we think about that in terms of some of the problems that you've already hinted on, like climate change, it is absolutely catastrophic, because it means that there are thousands, literally thousands of procurement officers, all under incredible resource pressure. And despite that pressure, all of them having to do very similar time-draining jobs without any support, without any infrastructure, any shared learning, any best practice. And it's catastrophic. Everybody's doing the same thing. So that, at its best, it's tragically inefficient. And when we look at how, in the same way as procurement touches on everything, local government touches on everything. So particularly when it comes to councils, all of these hundreds of councils around the UK, all desperately trying to have an impact, but without any infrastructure, without any support. But so repeating it's crazy. It's an absolutely crazy and terrifying situation.
I would liken it to, you have local authority up and down the country with blunt axes trying to chop trees to make to produce buildings, for example. And what you're doing is coming along and sharpening their axes and giving them also a wood mill, central wood mill, which is and can reflect and flex to any type of wood and every type of size that they want, leaving these individuals free in their local authorities to say, where should we use it? What should we build? Rather than how do we chop the tree down?
It's a good analogy. I'd probably take it further and say, actually, what we're doing is saying you don't have to chop any trees down. Initially, we've done all that work for you, but actually, we found a better material. You don't even need to chop the trees down. And here it is. you can buy it off the shelf, and it's customized entirely to the kind of buildings that you want to make.
So people can get on and plan to build for the future.
All local councils could do it straight away without having to go through all this quagmire of resource draining protocols.
Richard, thank you. Now, here's the really interesting bit. I'm fascinated here. Talk about the next bit. Well, to hear you talk about the next bit. So we talked about some of the problems, and you hinted at the fact that you've been involved in some quite high-tech things, including at a government level blockchain technology. So I really want to hear, how do you take the various technologies that you're using, for example, AI, deep research, MCDA, artificial intelligence in terms of large language models, and blockchain, and synthesize, take them together to create the solutions that you do? Tell me what it is about these different products and how they work together in your model.
It's a jigsaw puzzle. So I would say the three main elements are AI, MCDA, and blockchain. But blockchain's very much a standalone technology that really just helps things like audit trails, combating malpractice, combating the prospects of challenges to procurement exercises, and so on. The two key ones that work together, they're the AI
I could just interrupt just for a second. So what you're saying is that blockchain, which is used in cryptocurrencies, so people understand, is used to provide a high level, in fact, the highest level of assurance, audit assurance, if you like, record tracking assurance to government and to ratepayers and council taxpayers, that what's happening is at the highest level of probity.
Exactly. So blockchain is basically just a security system, but as you said, it underpins the entire cryptocurrency industry. It's not just for cryptocurrency; it's a security protocol. But if you think about that cryptocurrency connection, and then think about Bitcoin, there are, I don't know how many, thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of hackers out there that for the last 15 years have been desperately trying to hack into Bitcoin, and they just can't. The best hackers in the world, they can't do it. It is unbreakable. There's talk that in the future quantum computing will be able to break the blockchain, but then there's quantum blockchain. So at the moment, blockchain is the most secure system that there has ever been in the world. And what we're doing is that we use that within the procurement process. So every action that's taken within the whole cycle of procurement is recorded on the blockchain. And that's turned into a procurement audit report that applies to every project. So there's complete transparency, complete security. There can never be, we've had some pretty high profile malpractice or less than optimal procurements recently, especially during COVID and so on with the PPE scandals. But it basically combats that element of the problem.
So before we move on to the sexy bit, if you like, I think I'd probably say that blockchain, and correct me if I'm wrong, what it seems to be able to do is give you this ability to set out an audit trail, if you like, which anybody can interrogate to assure themselves, and it allows you, therefore, given that this is going on in the background and it's an electronic item or electronically processed, it allows you to process high volumes of transactions, for example, putting through lots of different styles of contracts across the UK, across every local authority, whilst not having to worry about this aspect of the probity.
Yeah, you're absolutely right in all elements of that. There's effectively no limits on the volume of data that can be run through blockchains. You've touched on something that is particularly exciting for the future, but we're not there yet, which is that blockchain can also drive what they call smart contracts. So when we look at things that we are working on it. It's part of the platform we've developed, like KPI reporting and contract management. Blockchain can drive these smart contracts, which basically say, well, when a supplier hits this milestone, whatever that may be, that might be delivering a piece of machinery, this is triggered. So a payment might be triggered, or a query might be triggered, whatever it may be. But that's immutable. It can't be changed, which is absolutely perfect. There's no potential for human interference on any kind of malevolent level. So smart contracts, yeah, that's a very exciting next step. It's very close. The systems are out there. We're looking at building those into our platform, but they're a little way away. They're probably next year.
Great. So now back to the sexy bit with AI and MCDA. Tell us more, Richard.
MCDA, that stands for Multi-Criteria Decision Analysis. And it's a complete game changer, because what this does is it allows us to take lots and lots of different factors that we need to balance. So if we start by bringing that back to something that is a day-to-day issue for most people, everybody can probably relate to an instance where they've been looking for, say, a new laptop. So when we look for a new laptop, well, the screen would be important, and the price would be important, and the RAM as well. But maybe the RAM not so much, because I don't use it for anything particularly complicated. Or there are all sorts of factors which have all have different levels of importance to me. And even on an individual level, trying to balance those can be pretty much impossible. And what you end up doing is looking at the different things side by side, perhaps, and thinking, well, okay, overall, probably I'll go with this one. What MCDA does is it lets you take dozens or hundreds, that, again, there's no real limit of factors, and apply and just quantify how important each one of those is to you. And then MCDA it just runs algorithms basically that say, well, okay, overall, the perfect solution for you is this. So that's super, super important, because what that does is, if we think back to this basic problem of public bodies having to repeat procurement processes because one size fits all doesn't do it for them, with an advanced MCDA solution, we can create one procurement framework which becomes completely customizable for every possible use case. So that's the MCDA bit, and that's a real fundamental game changer.
If I could just ask a question. So it sounds as if when we look at the MCDA, what you can also do, especially with the proposal that you have with CPRAS for all local authorities to work together, is that you gradually create a more refined best practice set of criteria, which I think we will talk later about how the criteria themselves can be changed to reflect the products that are available in the environment, so that at the moment, because obviously products and specifications change all the time. So if you like, it creates a framework which can evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is probably where the AI comes in. It comes in at various levels. The AI is a huge subject with lots of different branches. But one of the most interesting is exactly as you're saying there. So what we can do is we can say, okay, there are all these, I know for laptops, maybe there are 100 different criteria. And for you, Wisdom, maybe 6 of them are important. But for somebody in the tech team of a local authority, maybe all 100 of those are important. Okay, that's fine. So the MCDA can give the option for that complete customization. where the AI can come in to this particular issue is that it can look at what each user type is likely to need. So it can set everything up in advance. So as a tech expert in a council, we would already know that the importance of the RAM is going to be X. The importance of the screen size is going to be Y. And we can set that out, if you like, as a set of default values. So that when you then come to make your decision, or when the procurement officer makes their decision, it's already set out. And as you say, it refines over time. So the more times that a procurement officer or a marketing officer goes in and with their profile, they say, well, actually, this is important, that gets refined. And it becomes a virtuous circle, because we make this information available to the suppliers as well. So when the suppliers are planning their innovation pathways, they know that, well, Wisdom and 10,000 people like Wisdom around the country are all looking for this. But Richard and 100,000 people like Richard are all looking for this. So they can prioritize all of that based on what it is that we as their customers need.
So we've talked about the multi decision-making criteria analysis, which provides the framework, which evolves over time and provides, if you like, the best practice framework for organisations or for local authorities to use. Now, we talked about how different information can come in about different, requirements from local authorities. They can customise it. Now, what about looking at it upstream and saying, all right, we've got this problem, but what's available? How could we scope this? How does the technology help you do that?
That's where that's another really powerful kind of branch of where the AI can help. So when we start a project, we use AI for deep research. So right at day one, we look all around the world and we say, what are the transformative solutions? What are the incremental solutions? What's the innovation all around the world? And how is that helping to deliver better solutions for this particular service or product that we're looking at right now? Then it looks at the market, and then it looks at, what out of all that we found is going to be relevant in a UK context? And how is that being delivered? Is this through multinationals? What's the scope for involving SMEs, which is crucially important, because a lot of the time SMEs are the ones driving the real fundamental innovation. So how can we get the best out of the marketplace? And how are all these companies linking together in order to provide the different aspects of this service? So within a procurement, normally there will be several lots, which is just several different kind of aspects of what's being procured. So our AI would take all this market intelligence and this innovation search results and apply it to the market structure, and then say, okay, the most logical set of lots for this procurement would be X. And then it goes even deeper. So for each of those lots, it'll go out and it'll do an even deeper dive into what's the innovation, what are the environmental issues, what are the environmental innovations or the environmental consequences of some of these innovations, and how do we translate all of that into a requirement specification so that we can go out and we can say, no, we know that there are better environmental options here. We want this, and we want this, in a way that gives suppliers the opportunity to answer that, yes, they can deliver this. And so they can be, they're going to score points literally in the procurement process for those kind of positive environmental or social value or whatever it may be elements that we've identified using this kind of real deep dive research.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds amazing. It sounds like a very iterative process where the deep research tools can save thousands and thousands of very sophisticated hours of research to find out what's available and to, if you like, set a scene, a vista for the local authority to choose from. You now have better choice. And I guess that there was also a point, so you can choose better, and that feeds into your best practice contracts from the MCDA, which is amazing. And I can see potentially the opportunity for a selection for more local suppliers, or even saying, well, look to local suppliers if you want to have a sustainable circular economy locally, that here's some of the best solutions. We want you to match that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and it comes into it in it's not always applicable, but whenever, for example, if you're procuring something that needs to be delivered, well, actually, if it's being delivered to London from the Isle of somewhere in the Outer Hebrides, that's got a huge environmental impact, and that needs to be considered. So yes, absolutely, Wisdom.
Okay, so we're at the stage where, if I'm a procurement manager or a local authority chief exec, we've got an idea of an incredible vista of incredible sets of solutions that we could choose from, and we've defined it down. We know that we've got the best practice in terms of how to take that information and then put it into a contract. We also know that we've got already an audit trail already built in, so we know that we're complying with whatever regulations that we need to. Now, how do we take that forward into complying, producing contracts and complying with, for example, the Procurement Act?
One of the most important things here is data. So, the Procurement Act lays a foundation, and it's a great step forward. But we need procurement to be much more data based. So it's one area where, when we define our specifications, our requirement specifications, very often, far too often, these will be defined as open-ended questions, and suppliers will write a paragraph about, yes, how they do something. Well, that's all well and good, but what that means is that there's lots of negative implications to that. First of all, procurement officers have to evaluate that, and that's not easy. It's subjective. They have to provide a subjective score to that. They have to justify that subjective score. That opens up challenge, it opens up potential for malpractice and all sorts of things. But by focusing on the data, what that means that we can do is we can systemize this and we can make it objective. So, if you go back to the laptops thing, we might say that, for buyer profile X, maybe the marketing department, the screen size must be 14-inch, but actually anything bigger than that is 7 out of 10 important. We'd like it bigger, but it's only 7 out of 10. When we can evaluate on that basis, there's no longer any need to just either follow either of the traditional paths, which is saying, can you supply 14 inches or more? Yeah, but that misses out on something. Or asking for the open-ended question where they're not evaluated based on exactly what their potential is. So what we do, and a big part of what we use the AI to deliver for us, is making sure that every single one of the things that we ask of the suppliers is quantifiable objectively. Not just for, you hinted on it in your question, not just because of what that does for the procurement process, but also for later, once the contract is awarded, how do we monitor that contract? How do we know that actually the things that we've ordered are being delivered at the price that we were originally quoted and with all the terms and conditions? If it's not data driven, we can't control it. So we're also using the AI, as I say, to ensure that every aspect is objectively evaluable.
I mean, that sounds amazing. So we've got AI, if you like, coming in at the start saying, well, what are the potential? What's the vista? And then you've got the MCDA criteria and the technology there to say, well, let's evaluate this. And at each stage, we've got a feedback process so that we can refine the answers and the analysis. And then we're moving into the contract packaging, if you like, and the contract management, which, as you rightly say, is an absolutely vital aspect of ensuring value for money for local authorities. And again, you're already packaging a contract and again, learning in an iterative process what works, what doesn't work. And so you've got this very almost like a living platform, which is saying, helping local authorities to procure anything upon, and whatever they consider to be appropriate, but you're giving them templates and models to say, these are really good templates. These are the ones that work really well in the industry. These might comply with your United Nations SDGs or this objective for climate change. Or you might be climate denier and say, I don't care about any of that. I just want best value, best money at a lowest cost. And you can do it all. And then you've got blockchain managing, audit trailing, the whole lot. And so that sounds like an amazing set of tools that you're putting together. And we'll come and talk about later on more about this sort of the future. But let's talk about something in practice. So how has this been applied so far? How have you applied this for other local authorities so far?
It's actually a really interesting example. For me, it was quite an eye-opener because we were asked by Warwick Council to produce a national procurement framework for printing services and products. Now, to be honest, I was thinking that this would be, our tech is always good, but I was expecting the impact of that to be really quite limited to some efficiency savings. We'd have a more efficient, more transparent procurement process, and we'd probably save some money, but relatively limited and incremental. But during that research phase, we actually identified far more innovation than I expected in this sector, and especially when it comes to environmental impact. I think we identified 43 significant innovations, which together had about 90 different environmental considerations that have to be a part of this process if we're going to do it right. 90. I mean, there are 9 lots, so that doesn't mean that there are 90 questions that every supplier has to.
Yeah.
There are 9 lots, so on average, suppliers are going to have to answer, on average, 10 distinct environmental questions that have arisen from these 40-odd innovations that we've found around the world and across the UK. So, and these range from there are some innovations that are really about the productivity of the suppliers, making their process more efficient. But that matters too, because if they can save on their energy usage, that's fantastic, and it should be something that a buyer gets to consider. So all of those things that they get built in. Other things that took me by surprise. I don't know if you knew Wisdom, but there are actually inks available now that have a positive environmental impact. They're based on a type of algae and actually it's positive. It's not just less bad, it's positive. So these are all things that we can build in. And as I say, it was an eye-opener for me, because I was expecting print services and yeah. But innovation is everywhere. It's everywhere, and everything has an environmental impact. So I was kind of blown away by this particular project.
So it sounds like what you've done here is that using AI and the technology that you are masters at CPRAS, you've unlocked new ideas, new potentials, and new benefits, which obviously when you're looking at engaging with your stakeholders and your citizens and your residents, it's a very positive message to tell people that actually you're doing a great job and you're making some great choices and great selections.
Absolutely, exactly that. We're all about quantifying it as well, which is why there's such a synergy here between what we're doing and the Climate Statutory Duty. Yeah, we quantify everything. It's about data, so we've got to quantify. And in this instance, just with print, we worked out that actually, if this was widely adopted in the public sector, we'd be saving about 30,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide emissions per year, plus energy savings through the supply chain, reductions in pollution, water waste, and savings of about £100 million a year for the public purse. That's just printing. This was one that I wasn't expecting great results from, and yet, wow, £100 million a year for the public purse. What could that be invested in terms of fighting climate change or social value, cost of living crisis, whatever it may be?
Richard, I want to touch on money again. Sorry, because most local authorities are money driven. They have to be, from a value for money perspective, as they call it. And when preparing the program, you did talk about that the typical saving for local authorities using this sort of a framework that you're talking about, the CPRAS framework, is about 30%. That's a 30% cost reduction, in addition to all of the other benefits in terms of your not having to have quite such a heavy local, if you like, HR count, not having to complying with net zero, improving the environment. So you do all of these things, and you save directly money.
Yeah. So absolutely. Yeah, we're running at it's just over 30% average savings on the cost of what is being procured. When it comes to the cost of procuring these things, yes, there are savings there too, but I wouldn't say it's reducing the HR count. What it's doing is it's enabling procurement officers to use to spend their time at the proper pay grade. At the moment, procurement officers are very, very often forced to spend huge amounts of their time doing stuff that is way beneath what their training level is and what their pay grade is and so on. But they just have to do it because that's the system. This takes away all that grunge work. It takes the leg work away. It arms them with data on which they can base their expertise to refine it for their local authority or their healthcare trust or whatever it may be. Stuff that they want to be doing. Nobody ever wants to be doing grunge work when they've trained to do highly specialized work. So it's really about taking the pressure off and enabling procurement teams to do what they really want to do.
That's fantastic. I'm sure every procurement manager was going to love that. Say, like, actually, we're improving your environment, improving your job satisfaction, Mr. Procurement Manager. So brilliant. So, Richard, before we move on to the next section, which is going to be talking about, well, what's the future? What's available technology-wise? What might CPRAS be moving into? I just want to summarize, say two things. Firstly, we'll provide details in more written form about the contracts that, Richard, you spoke about, and how CPRAS have actually benefited Shropshire, I believe it was, council in the different and was it for Shropshire? Was it roads? I can't quite recall that one.
No, Shropshire was our very first financial services framework.
Okay, so we'll talk about that in more detail in the narrative part of this blog. But what I want to just go on to just to summarize, and what we're at the moment is that you've got this universal what in terms of what technology is doing today with this CPRAS product. And I'm sorry if I'm saying CPRAS too many times. There might be other people out there who are using blockchain, AI, and other advanced forms of technology to provide these solutions. Please talk to me, because I want to hear, and we want to sort of incorporate you within the solution suite for a climate statutory duty. But here are the advantages so far. You've got the best standard in terms of contracts. You've got identification and quantification of innovation solutions, a savings of around 30%, streamlining and speeding up the contract procurement process, 100% compliance and auditability, world-class procurement support function at a no extra cost, in the sense of you've got almost the ability to talk to one another and talk to other people who are using the site. You've got an enhanced achievement of your corporate strategy. So your local authority will understand that you can reverse engineer your contracts to achieve your corporate strategy, or you can take the outcomes of what's available in the marketplace to enhance your corporate strategy, to make it even better, even more challenging, and even more achieving for your local residents. And of course, improving policy and government, because if you know better, you know how to do it better, then you can ask better questions. And in addition to that, I think we haven't really touched on it in there so far, but you've talked about if all local authorities got together, or more local authorities got together, you have the ability to set up a central digital support platform, which actually then speeds up the creating of best value solutions, it speeds up the innovation, and it speeds up the learning and understanding of the contract sector. Is that a good summary in a nutshell?
Absolutely, and I'd actually put all of the emphasis on that last point. I think we desperately need a central digital support platform for procurement, and the impact of that would be exponential. That's not chipping around at the edges. That would enable, in one foul swoop, perhaps in less than a year, you could have it so that literally every council could adopt every best practice instantaneously.
And achieve net zero instantaneously on that function.
I didn't say achieve net zero instantaneously, but get a exponentially quicker pathway to do it.
Great, fantastic. So tell us about the future. What's the future going to look like? This is available now. So what could be available next?
The future just gets more, in this context, more and more exciting, because you touched on it earlier, Wisdom, that as more and more organizations start to use this central digital support system, that feeds data in, and it gets more and more powerful to figure out solutions to everybody's problems, and integrating with the supply chain. Far too often when it comes to procurement, there's an us versus them kind of character to the way that procurement has to be done. It has to be a council or whatever public body saying, you will deliver this, and these are our terms and conditions. What this does is it gives this kind of virtuous circle of feedback, so that the solutions that the supply chain are developing, all of that innovation is focused on achieving the same goals that we have in the public sector. We touched as well on blockchain. Yeah, absolutely. The concept that smart contracts should absolutely be built into the whole procurement process, so that you've got an end-to-end system that starts with, okay, we need laptops, but it ends up with the whole contract being managed right through to end of life and disposal or refurbishment, and yet the whole thing, all data driven and all continuously learning, every bit of learning being instantaneously available or automatically feeding the next purchase that any public body needs to make.
That's very, very powerful, that now we're taking procurement into a very grown-up place where we're not just looking to procure stuff and buy stuff for now. We're looking to cradle to grave, if you like, management of the resources, the earth resources that we're using. That is very, very profound for me, and I look forward to that. So, Richard, what's next for CPRAS? I mean, CPRAS seems like a commercial organisation, but what's in it for CPRAS, and what's next for CPRAS?
Don't know which of those to take first. What's in it for us is the simplest. So we charge a levy to suppliers, just like Crown Commercial Services or ESPO or whoever it may be. It's the standard industry model, and we follow that. What we want to do, what's next? I mean, I touched on it early on. I think this should be part of the national infrastructure. This shouldn't be us. We've developed the technology, but it should be part of as I say, the national infrastructure. Procurement is too important to be just left in the hands of any commercial organisation, in my opinion. I think we need to be licensing this to government, and government adopting it and taking it out of our control and driving it with all the resources of government and with all the infrastructure of government and the dissemination potential of government. Now's the time that we have to do that. So yes, at the moment we're a commercial organisation. I don't really want to be. I think we should be part of the public sector ourselves. But until we are, we're just going to continue. We're going to make all my focus now is on making this central digital support platform, what a mouthful, available to primarily local authorities, every public body, but local authorities to me touch on every aspect of life, and they're an absolute key in how we tackle some of these problems like climate change. So for me, all of my focus is about working with local authorities to make the platform even better, and also trying to, we're actually launching at the moment something we're calling Cohort 20, where we're opening up applications to a maximum of 20 authorities, where we're just going to take their wish list and apply all of this technology to their wish list, and deliver it free of charge, all the rest of it. That to me is a really important step in the journey towards becoming a public infrastructure, a part of the public infrastructure. So yeah, if anybody's watching that represents an authority that has a wish list of things that they'd like to do, everything I've discussed, we would deliver. So it's not even self-serve on our tech. We would deliver that free of charge, free of obligation. If you like it, use it. If you don't use it.
That's incredibly powerful, because you're saying that you're taking the goose that's laying the golden egg, and you're saying to local authorities, or whether to the LGA or to the government, we're giving this to you for the public good. That's incredibly profound. May I ask, how do people contact you if they want to find out more about you, about CPRAS, or about Cohort 20?
Really easy. My email address is my initial and my name, r.hallywell at cpras.co.uk.
Okay, and of course, I'm about to put it up on the screen as well, both your name, address, not your telephone number, but certainly the CPRAS. I've always wanted to know, what does CPRAS UK actually mean?
We were the Card Processing Advisory Service.
So thank you. I mean, you heard there, everybody, a really exciting use of technology. CPRAS is the name of the organization, and using technology to turbocharge procurement, to make it slick, quick, and also use the whole potential of blockchain, of AI and other forms of technology to create solutions that are living, growing, more importantly, save time and money, and help us all, if you like, if we want to, safeguard the environment and do it quickly on scale across the UK. So this could be, from my perspective, when we're talking about climate statutory duty for the UK, one of the key solutions and tools to helping people, helping local authorities get there quickly and get there smart. Richard Hallewell from CPRAS, thank you very much.
Thank you, Wisdom.